Basically, we're going to get started here. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar titled You Can Start Your Own Business. We'll show you how. We're excited to have you here today, and we hope you enjoy the webinar. My name is Russell Day, and I'll be the host today. I'm the chairperson for the Business and Legal Studies programs here at Penn Foster, and we're happy to have John Schroeder here as a presenter. He is going to talk today about being an entrepreneur. He's had a lot of experience over the years running quite a few businesses and starting some. And he's also going to talk a little bit about our new certificate program, Start Your Own Business. I'll be turning the webinar over to John in just a moment here. So before we get started, I just want to kind of go over a few things. John's had many experiences as an entrepreneur. Like I said, he'll share some of the important things that he's learned over the years. And John is a member of our Penn Foster Business Advisory Council, and he'll talk a little bit about his experiences in the webinar in a moment. If you're considering starting a business, this is a great webinar for you. Take advantage of John's experience. We really are looking forward to hearing from you. Any questions that you have about starting a business, feel free to post them. We're going to start by I want to talk a little bit about the console that you have here. You should have a console up in the right side of your screen. You can minimize this panel by clicking on the arrow button in the upper left-hand corner of the control panel. If you're not using it or not answering any questions, you can get that out of the way for you, and you click on that arrow to bring it back as well. So you can expand that. Go ahead and practice that if you're not familiar with the GoToWebinar system. Second, you're going to have the ability to ask questions and also answer questions that we might have for you. So basically, you're going to have a little question box in the console that you can click on and put your question in. And I just want to make sure that everybody's able to use that. So why don't you start by typing in your name and where you're from. And I just want to make sure that that's working for everybody. Okay, so I guess you can hear me. I'm starting to see a few people listening. So we have quite a few people here from Georgia, New Jersey, Missouri, Maryland, Virginia, wow, Sun City West, Arizona, Mississippi, looks like the Great Lakes. So it looks like we have a good turnout here. Arkansas. Let's see, where else? North Carolina. We have somebody from Hawaii. So we have people from all over the country here. We have a few international people as well from the Caribbean. So it looks like we got a good group here. Now you know how to use that question box. Don't be afraid to use it. We've allotted 60 minutes for this webinar. I'm not sure that we'll use the whole 60 minutes. A lot of it will depend on the questions that you have. So take advantage of the opportunity to get some of your questions answered about starting a business. So I'm going to turn the webinar over to John. And let me see here. John, are you unmuted there? Let's see here. Can you hear me, John? Okay, seems like we're having a little technical issue here. Okay, looks like you're self-muted, John. If you could unmute yourself. There you go. All right, can you hear me, John?
Yep, I can hear you fine now.
Okay, great. All righty. So I'm going to let you take it from here. Why don't you just start and talk a little bit about your experiences, and then we'll get you can get into what you wanted to talk about.
Oh, okay. Well, now on the first slide that you can see right there, you get a picture of what that's not more than a year or two old. So yes, I am that old and that gray. But I retired a few years back. But before I did, I was really an entrepreneur for pretty much my whole life. From the age of 23, I started from scratch or bought as many as 7 different types of businesses in the various endeavors that I had. And most of those were service companies, which actually that's kind of a question I wanted to start with while I continue to go on with this. I'd like to know how many of you are thinking of being an entrepreneur, self-employed in selling services that you do, and how many of you are interested in selling some kind of a product. So if you can throw that up, I'm sure Russell will be able to tell us, give me the feedback, because I'm not able to see the chat box from my position over here. But I'd like to get an idea of the percentage of how many service entrepreneurs and how many product entrepreneurs we're looking at out there. Just so that you know my background, I'm mainly service, but the interesting thing is a lot of my background had to do with the mortgage and finance world, which had me looking at an awful lot of tax returns and financial statements for the clients that I was working with. And once you get to see the financial statements and talk to them about getting financing together, you get to know a great deal about them. So I really do understand the ins and outs of all the service businesses out there, but I do have a lot of experience with both the wholesale and retail firms, as well as construction and even those that are involved with international trade. So there's no question that the startup entrepreneur, especially if you've never done this before, has the best chance of succeeding if they're doing a service business online rather than trying to pour all the money that it takes into opening their doors in what we call brick and mortar. To have an office location or a retail location and having to buy inventory and all that is much more expensive. And the good news is Penn Foster's program, the one that we're discussing today for entrepreneurs, is geared in that direction. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of my background before we go on, and let me ask Russell, if you can tell me what the response was in the.
Yeah, we got quite a few here. Let's start. We have a dog obedience instructor. We have quite a few people that have indicated service or some sort of service business. We have someone with a computer graphics design. Let's see, they're still coming in here, so my screen keeps jumping. Mobile pet groomer, a gunsmith.
Well, it doesn't even.
Yeah, go ahead. Hello.
It sounds like it's all service so far.
Yeah,
yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry. Wedding event planner, someone who's flipping houses. So we have quite another one, a retail boutique. So we have quite a few people. Childcare professional, open a restaurant, or open a restraint or web design business. So we've got quite a collection here of interests.
All right. Well, it sounds like mainly we're talking about the ones that you mentioned there. Probably the restaurant involves a product, if you will, as far as the food eat. Right, cost of sales, but most of them are online service. Well, if you can go on to the next slide there, I think we're talking. Actually, I think those are 5 different certificate programs that Penn Foster offers right there.
Right.
And so when you have the 5 different online businesses that you see listed, and I'm sure there are more, this program doesn't teach you. This particular one doesn't teach you how to specialize in any of those things. That's a different thing altogether, but it will give you the general background or transferable skills that helps you to know how to be successful in any one of the online or even product businesses that you choose. So the point here is to follow what you really enjoy in life, the things that you have passion and talent for, and go for that industry because that's what brings you the greatest joy. So Penn Foster covers a lot of the basics that an online entrepreneur business person needs to know. And then your real success comes from the edge you bring to the table, from your own branding, your own talents, compared to what's available out there through the competition. I was in 7 different ventures over my career, and in each case, it was my own unique approach that set me apart and ahead of the competition, because we all knew the general things, because you have to learn them along the way or you'll go out of business. I did have some hard lessons to learn where talent alone didn't help me, and we'll touch on some of those examples of what those hard lessons were for me before this hour's over. So I'm on to the next slide at this point. Russell, if you can
should be
click it forward,
yeah,
go on to the program overview of the objectives and goals.
Yeah, it looks like we have a delay here. I'm not sure. We should be in the program overview screen here. Let's see here. What's going on? Let's try it again here. Come on.
There it is.
Is it coming up?
It made it. It's
all right. Yeah, that took a long time. Okay, yeah, sorry about that, folks.
I went too far. Oh. Now we're back.
There we go.
Okay, so when you take a look at the program overview being the objectives and goals, you're able to see what it is that Penn Foster's, the people that develop the course, what the outcomes are on there, and I don't need to read them to you, as far as what it is that you're supposed to be able to do after you've gone through this program. Now, I can tell you that I personally reviewed Penn Foster's Start Your Own Business program, and even I took all the tests that went along with it, because certainly once you take a look at the test, you really know what they're looking for in the content. And it really does cover a wide variety of the needed skills it takes to be self-employed. It is important to understand early on that an entrepreneur is necessarily a jack of all trades, and that's because the owner is responsible for every aspect of the business. So we may not be an expert web designer, but we need to know what appeals to our customers when they log on to our web page. And that allows us to guide the webmaster that we hire to creating, a thing of beauty when people log on to talk to us online. Whatever we aren't experts in ourselves, just by ourselves, we can buy that kind of talent from other firms, whether it be a CPA, whether it be attorneys, whether it be marketing firms, it doesn't matter. But the less we have to spend on outside consultants, the better. For instance, when I first started in college for my bachelor degree, I started as a marketing major. I tell you, I quickly switched to having finance as a major because I was very weak in accounting and I just knew my own traits. I said, I need to understand financial statements. I need to understand accounting, seeing how important the numbers were, not only to being able to run the business, but be able to talk to the bankers who were going to loan me money down the road when I needed it the most. So the world of banking and credit is driven by those numbers. And I can say that really served me well to get the bachelor degree in finance and be able to speak banker talk fluently. I later went back and got an MBA in marketing, which was infinitely easier for me because I really have a passion for sales and advertising. So that one worked out well. So in looking at the program objectives and goals, you're able to see the outcomes of the transferable or general skills it takes to be an entrepreneur. But I can tell you we're going to go into a few specifics that you'll need to, like I had a weakness in accounting, you may have your own things you need to work on as well. And the next slide. That one came up quick.
That's better.
I always found this kind of it did. It worked out great. I think it's always interesting. These numbers, as you can see, are a little dated, but overall, I don't think they change over time. You're able to see 3 different ways of looking at self-employment rates. One is what the term is called demographics, and being able to break people down into various categories. And the first demographic shows you general age groups. So you can see the largest grouping of self-employed people is 65 years and older. Well, that makes a lot of sense because those are the folks that have already retired from a career, and so they probably do what they did for a living in retirement as a part-time position just to keep themselves out of trouble and occupied and feeling like they're still kind of like what I'm doing right now. So you have the other age groups right there, but notice that there's no more than about 10% of the population that winds up in any one of those age groups and being self-employed other than the retired folks of 65 years and older. You can also see that there are a few more men percentage-wise than women when it comes to being self-employed. And it's very interesting to see what happens with the statistics down there in the educational area, and that is showing that the majority, it's not a vast majority, but a majority of people who don't have much formal education are the ones who wind up trying to be entrepreneurs. I can tell you, as an example, I was involved in retail shopping center management, and I had a number of the tenants who had rented space from us in the shopping center were from Korea. And I remember I needed to have a Korean translator talking to them about, raising the rent or something. And I go in there, and it was in a largely Hispanic community. And here's this Korean owner, and he was speaking fluent Spanish to this customer that he was selling some clothes to. And I said, oh my gosh, here I am with this translator. He probably speaks a number of different languages. And the Korean translator I had with me, he said, no, he doesn't speak any English. And I said, oh, really? How come he speaks fluent Spanish and he doesn't speak fluent English? And I know he'd been there 5 or 6 years. And he goes, well, you have to think of it for a second. When he's talking to that gentleman, he's making money. When he's talking to you, it costs him money. So he put his attention into learning the language that makes money for him. And when he's talking to me, he tries to make it as difficult as possible to communicate so I can't raise his rent. I got to say that that was quite an interesting lesson to get there. So we all put our focus, where our advantages are. Also, to go along with that, you have so many folks who, especially if they don't speak English, who come to this country and open something like a retail outlet because they let their product and pricing and branding speak for itself, and they don't have to have the cultural barriers or the language barriers get in their way to success. So when you're looking at the educational attainment right here, you can see that you can have some very bright people who don't necessarily have the bachelor, advanced, graduate degrees, and but they can still be successful as a self-employed person. Obviously, they're not going to hold themselves back for not having the higher degrees as that goes. So if you can go on to the next slide, and believe me, if you have questions along the way, and Russell, if you haven't come up, I'm glad to answer them at any point as we go.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see any at the moment.
Okay, no problem. So I'm still onto the program overview as far as how does it work on the next slide at this point. I think you went back one. Russell, you there? And one after that.
Yeah, there we go. For some reason, it's jumping around here.
Not a problem. That's okay. The one. Okay, so it breaks it down as far as the courses that you're going to be looking at. There are 12 lessons in starting your own business as far as what you go through. Like I said, I actually have an overview of this and even took all the tests myself. And breaks the curriculum down into those 4 bullet points as far as what it covers to give you the general background. I can tell you that I have one of the things that I found fascinating about this is that it was the section on business plans, because I am a real fan of writing a business plan and making it so that it comes alive for you and that you live it. Tim Foster's program definitely covers how this is supposed to be done. Now, as I said, this is a vital process to go through, but let me mention a surprising outcome that after as many business plans as I've written, is something that I've learned that you really wouldn't expect. And that is, once I finish writing a business plan and really just immersing myself in it, I rarely went back to look at it. And you're going, my gosh, how could it be like that? I mean, why would you look at it that way? And the answer is because the process of writing a business plan so firmly plants it all of those details in your mind that you become a walking encyclopedia of its contents. You don't have to go back and look at it because your business plan is practically committed to memory, and that's a good thing, believe me. So if you have to keep constantly referring back to tab A or B or C, that's telling me that you don't really understand it well enough and that you didn't really go through it well enough in order to be able to make it a part of who you are. So believe me, you learn how to do what you do better and how to obtain clients and keep them happy, as well as how to improve what you offer with what you learn from every new experience that you have in business. So the business plan says what you think is going to happen, and then from there you are constantly adjusting that as you learn more and more with each new client that you acquire. But the program overview and how it works, you get to have all of this as your foundation for becoming an entrepreneur in the beginning, and then it tweaks, as I said, as every day goes by. So you can go to the next slide there.
Yeah, John,
go ahead.
Yeah, we actually have a question. This probably is something that a lot of students have a question about, and I know this is covered in the lesson material. Can you explain unincorporated and incorporated, please? That's coming from Annis.
Yeah, that's actually an excellent question. I can tell you when I first started in my self-employment, I thought it was very important to become to do business as a corporation. And there are a number of forms of corporate, limited liability corporations, S Corps, C Corps, and so on. And frankly, I've done business under all of those. I got away in my later years from being a corporation, and here's the difference between them. You are literally creating a business entity that stands on its own and lives without you when you are creating a corporation. That also means that it stands on its own financially. So if the corporation is doing business with somebody and they're unhappy with you and they want to sue you, then they are suing a separate person from yourself. So if you buy a house and cars and savings accounts and all of that, that's absolutely safe from being sued, even if you make a mistake through the business, if you're operating as a corporation. On the other hand, if you do business as a self-employed person and just, for instance, I did business as John Schroeder mortgage broker for many, many years. I didn't have to worry about being sued and having people take my personal assets. I never was sued, but I mean, if I had been under those circumstances, I was covered by what's called errors and omissions insurance. You might want to write that down. E&O insurance, errors and omissions insurance, because it's very inexpensive. I mean, for my mortgage business, I was doing millions of dollars of mortgages every year, and I don't think it cost me more than $250, $300 a year to be insured for up to $1 million coverage on E&O insurance. And what that means is that if somebody does sue you for doing something that costs them money, assuming it wasn't just out and out fraud, and that you can control easily, you are covered by an insurance company to be able to take care of that, even when you are operating as a self-employed person without a corporate shield, as they call it. So you can do it just as easy. So I tell you, one of the other downsides of it is you have to keep a completely separate set of books when you have a corporation from your own. And believe me, that sounds a lot easier than it is. You get so used to writing checks out of a checking account, and all you have to do is pay one car payment or one MasterCard bill of your own through your corporate account. You've now violated the law, and they can pierce that corporate shield. And even if you have the corporate protection legally, if you don't treat it right and do everything, perfectly along the way, if you get sued, they can still come after you personally. So you have to be very, very careful with that. I hope that answered the question.
Okay.
All right. On to the bullet points in terms of the modules and how it gets broken down to of owning a business. It really, from owning the business, you get to go ahead and look at it in the way that it's described there. You also have the objectives of what the outcomes that go through that. And the way that it does that is by taking a look at owning and operating an online business and writing the business plan for that. And as I said, I have the if, in case you're wondering, did I get 100% on the exams at the end? No, I didn't. So I was able to learn a few things along the way there. Again, so much of this is online based, and even though I did a lot of business online and certainly through the mail and such, that there are constant updates to all of that. So it's definitely an ongoing business. If you're online, you have to keep learning and growing and educating yourself on how to stay up on it as things go. So, I found that the things that really got in my way as an entrepreneur were largely unexpected. I mean, you keep thinking when you're writing the business plan, well, I know that this or that challenge is going to come along. And for the most part, you'll be right on that, but you've already created a contingency plan that allows you to go ahead and get around those things. It's the things that you don't see coming that really get you. For example, in order to run an online business, you have to be able to accept credit and debit cards. Now, the only way you can get approved by a bank to accept online payments from debit and credit cards is if you have good credit. So if your credit cards, your credit scores, you may have heard them as FICO scores. But if your credit scores aren't so good, it costs you a lot of money. It could be as bad as you can't get approved to accept credit cards at all. But if your credit is so-so, you're going to wind up having to pay an awful lot more money than you would if you had good credit in order to get there. So it makes sense that there's a higher interest rate charged on people who accept credit cards if your credit is so-so compared to those with good credit. Now, here's an example, that you have a higher interest rate that you have to pay when you apply for credit cards if you don't have good credit. But if you have great credit, then you wind up having a lower interest rate on those credit cards. It works just in reverse as far as how the discount rate works. For instance, if you make a $100 sale, and probably the best rates out there today are about 1.5%, that means you would get $98.50 deposited in your account from the bank or from PayPal if you accept that. So that's called the discount rate, and the worse your credit is, the higher that discount rate is. For instance, when I first started to accept credit cards, I had excellent credit, but I didn't have any experience. And so they didn't like that I was doing things online, doing things through telephone sales, and I wound up having a discount rate of 8% on every dollar. Now, I was later able, after I got the experience, to lower that to 1.5%. But let me, bring this home in numbers we're all going to understand. Even with that good credit, for every $100,000 I earned, I was giving the bank an extra $6,500 a year just because they considered me a higher risk by having no experience. Now, however, I was able to accept credit and debit cards, and that would have been a deal breaker. So I was glad to pay the 8% compared to the 1.5%, and I was really glad to get the experience, so I only had to pay the 1.5% instead of the 8%. And that is one of the things that you just don't often get when you're in a business course. I mean, I went on to get an MBA and never heard anything about FICO scores. So again, the things that you can plan for and create contingencies, that's great, but the things that you don't know are going to be a problem or can be a problem are the ones that can really come up and bite you.
Okay, very true.
Let's try the next slide, because I've got 3 slides in a row showing an Excel slide here, and this one is really important for the folks that are out there, because how many folks are thinking that question in the upper left-hand corner underneath column A there? It says, should I become self-employed? Now, what you're seeing here is about as simple an income statement as you'll ever see. And I'm going to show you how to be able to fill this thing in by hand and be able to figure out if it's time to become self-employed, if you can make that plunge. And you start at the bottom. If you're seeing that $50,000 at the very bottom of the net income, I just pulled that number out of the air, and you see the note off to the right that says, this is the amount you would make as a W-2 employee. So let's say that you're a wedding planner for somebody else, or that you're a graphic designer, or whatever the business is that you're considering becoming self-employed, and you're employed right now, and your annual income is, just for a number to use, $50,000. Now, you want to be able to back up from the bottom there to the the top. Now let's leave the expenses out of it for a second. And looking at the sheet here, you're going, well, I'd have to be able to make $50,000 in sales in order to net 50,000, assuming I didn't have any expenses. So I'm starting here real easy to say, if you can get $50,000 in sales, then so far so good. You're at least breaking even from where you would be as a W-2 employee working for somebody else, and then it makes sense to be self-employed. Let's go to the next slide here, Russell, and I'll start being able to expand on that. Now, it's not that difficult to be able to plug in the numbers that you would have for the expenses, and that's what I've done over here to the left. So let's say that you have an advertising budget of about $6,000, call it $500 a month, because I'm doing this for an annual basis. So call it $500 a month that you've got set aside to be able to advertise your business. Then you have office expenses, and from that I'm saying it's like $250 a month to be able to take care of things like copy machines and office supplies and that sort of thing. Outside help, when I just put the 4,000, what you're looking at there is an annual basis that you're definitely going to have to hire people to help you in certain areas. You need a CPA to be able to figure out your taxes if you've never done that before, because one thing that'll come up and bite you quickly is if you start not paying the government their money. The IRS is a cruel mistress when it comes to not giving them the things that they want and are legally owed to them. So if you were to see that $6,000, $3,000, and $4,000, you add those up and you see how I got to the total expenses of $13,000. So if you take the net income and you add the expenses to it, then you see that the number of sales, the sales dollars on the top, became 63,000, because that's how much money you would have to gross. That's where that number comes from, as opposed to net. So your gross sales would have to be 63,000 in order to net 50,000. So when you're looking at this, most places wind up having more detailed expenses of what I've shown here, but I'm just trying to show you the down and dirty part of how to be able to make this happen. Let's go ahead and go to the third slide on this, because it's where everything comes together. All right, now here's where I still keep the same numbers over to the left, but here's where I figure out what I am going to do with that $63,000 number. You're going, gee, that sounds like a lot of money. Am I going to be able to do that? Well, let's say that whatever process or whatever service that you're offering, you bill out at about $75 per hour. And let's just say it's a graphic designer. So if it's a graphic designer, you know that you're billing at $75 an hour. The question is how many hours do I have to bill on the average every month to reach the proposed sales figure of $63,000? Well, how do you figure that out? Well, that's that next line down there. It says take $63,000, divide it by how much you charge per hour, and then divide that by 12 months. And you're going to find out that you need 70 hours per month of billing at $75 an hour in order to make the $63,000 a year. I'm not going to spend too much time on the math, because you can look at this in a recorded mode and be able to go back and catch it and figure it out for yourself. But I've done the math a few times, so I'm sure the numbers are right. The one thing that I did do was go back and calculate if on an average month, if you're using a normal work week of 40 hours, an average month has 173 hours in it. If you have 40 hours a week, because remember, some weeks, a month is not just 4 weeks, it's 4.33 usually. So you wind up having 173 working hours per month, and you need to be able to have 70 of those being billed. Now you can look at it and say, am I going to be able to bill 70 hours worth of work on a monthly basis at $75 an hour? That's where you find out if your projection is reasonable or not. Because on a weekly basis, you'd look at that and say, well, that's 17, 18 hours a week. Would I be able to stay that busy? And when you look at it from that small a number, going, can I be working part-time or work, like call it 20 hours a week, then I know I am going to make enough money to at least make as much money as I am right now. Now, let's say you see yourself only making billing 10 or 15 hours a week in the beginning. That would tell you that you cannot just jump into this with both feet and say bye-bye to your existing employer and become self-employed right now. What it means is that, and you need to make sure that your employer is okay with this, that you're not poaching clients or whatever, that you're able to go ahead and run your own business and be able to have your own clients on the side while keeping your full-time W-2 employee job, so that you have that regular paycheck coming in until you're sure that you've established yourself well enough in order to be able to hit the projections so that you can go out on your own. So that's, believe me, I just covered right there in about 5 minutes probably one of the most important decisions you have to make when it comes to being an entrepreneur, but at least you now have the tools that it takes to be able to make that calculation, at least as we call it, on the back of an envelope. Next slide, Russell. So in managing time and clients being another one of the modules, and the way that they break down the curriculum of what you're learning in becoming self-employed, you can see the description and objectives there and how they break down the study units. A lot of the information in here is definitely showing you how to work out contracts with a client out there, and what rates to set yourself, and what happens when a client has one expectation and you have another. Sometimes they think when they hire you, they own you, and then the other side of that where they start having unreasonable. Well, gee, can I have that at 5 o'clock today? So it definitely works with the skills that it takes to be able to have good relations with the clients out there, so that you do not get in trouble with them having too high or too low an expectation. Now, I can say that Penn Foster's program covers an awful lot of areas that will help you train to be a jack of all trades. And knowing what to charge for what you do, knowing about contracts and managing client expectations, that's really important information, and that's what's covered in this. So I learned an awful lot about those things throughout my working life. Again, with every new client, you learn something new. But we all have to get the basics, and you all have to understand how to be able to do the things that you see, especially under the study units there, and that's what Penn Foster's program is all about. They get you started in the right direction. They give you the foundation to learn more, and as I said, with each new client, you just put yourself that much further ahead of the game. Well, actually, I was going to let me take a moment. If you have any other questions on there, I know I'm going through this stuff kind of fast here, Russell, so make sure you interrupt me so I can cover those if I'm going too quickly on it.
Well, I just have one question. Actually, this is something I can answer. This is from Amy, asking whether the webinar is recorded. And yes, it is recorded, and we will be posting it on our Penn Foster community. Probably the beginning of next week. So if you want to review it again, it'll be available on the community in the business section of the academic tab at the top. Sorry about that.
Oh, not a problem. I'll give you an example when it comes to the client expectations and what contract law is and all that. I'll give you one that's we use this term in the School of Business called widgets, so you don't get hung up on whether it's a service or a product that you're selling. But let's say that you are normally offering widgets for $3 per widget, and you go ahead and write a letter to all of your clients that for the next 90 days, you are offering widgets for $2 per widget. I mean, that's a 33% discount, and all of a sudden your orders start to increase dramatically. And in fact, they go up so dramatically, you're not able to go ahead and fill all of those orders. And so you get inundated with the orders. Now you're going to start upsetting your clients because you can't fulfill the orders and can't give them all the widgets that they want to buy. And so you go out there and say, you know what, I said that I was going to sell these widgets to you at $3 each, and instead and now I put it on special for $2, but I've changed my mind. I'm going back up to $3, even though you have it in writing that for 90 days I was going to do it for $2. Did you know that it's entirely legal for you to do that? And this is where you have to be very careful about contract work, because what it's the concept in contract law is called mutual consideration. You made a unilateral contract in which you're allowing the customer to take advantage of a 33% discount without them having to do anything in return. It would be very much the same thing as if Walmart put something on sale and then they raised the price up the next day. And it doesn't matter if they, what they said was going to go on if it was a unilateral deal. Now, if you said, you buy at least 100,000 widgets over the next 90 days, and I'll keep the price at $2 each instead of $3. Now they're promising to do something in exchange for you lowering the price. Now you have a contract, and they can take you to court and make you, perform on that as it is. But if you do it unilaterally, that's not the case. So it's an interesting thing to have to understand contract law and see where you can get bid on these things if you don't understand it well enough. Just an interesting anecdote that you pick up in your decades of doing this, or at least I did. Go ahead, next slide, Russell. We'll go on from there.
All righty.
Now, one of the things that I'm showing right here is this is inevitably one of the things. It's kind of a general idea of finance in dollars that most entrepreneurs don't have. This is, I understood early on, why I got my bachelor degree in finance and waited until the MBA program to move over to marketing. And that's because I needed to understand all of the numbers. You heard me say that early on, and I'm repeating it here because it's so important. These 4 companies, or 4 logos that you're seeing right here, are usually things that you have to go out of house in order to be able to get. So the first thing you see there is QuickBooks. I wouldn't suggest getting another program. There are all kinds of programs that will allow you. Microsoft Money has one, and a lot of people use it at home. But believe me, QuickBooks is probably the least expensive software program for being able to do your accounting on your own computer at the lowest dollar amount that almost any CPA is able to take a backup copy of your software and be able to convert it into what they need instead of having to make copies and all of that. You could do it completely online. I've done it all that way for many, many years. In fact, I haven't seen my I'm serious. He lives in California. And so I haven't seen my CPA in 20 years. He's out of California. I live in Arizona. By the way, hello to Sun City West if you're still with me out there. I know it's 109 degrees today, so I hope you're in air-conditioned comfort as I am. But in the QuickBooks, we have such a universal acceptance of that in the CPA world. It will definitely behoove you to be able to use that as your accounting system. I put 2 up there in terms of ADP and Paychecks because there's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I've worked with both of them. Both of them are excellent nationwide payroll companies that don't even charge you $100 a month to be able to handle your payroll. Believe me, if anyone gets in trouble in this world, it's with those numbers, because especially if you have employees, you're supposed to be withholding taxes, and then you have like 3 days to be able to send that money over to the IRS in order to be able to stay compliant. You get out of that, and believe me, it's not only that you are in trouble with the IRS, you can be in criminal trouble. That's where you go to jail. And you start hearing about celebrities that owe so much money to the IRS. Believe me, all those assistants that they have on their staff that are, picking up their dry cleaning or doing their shopping, it's not sending the tax money that they've been withholding from their paychecks over to the IRS that actually gets them in jail. It's not just in trouble, it's a criminal offense. So you have to be so careful. And these companies will take care of that for you for a very minimal fee. The last logo there, talking about proud to be a CPA, is just letting you know that you definitely want to work with a CPA to be able to file your taxes. I know the ins and outs of everything I do in accounting, and I still use a CPA to be able to fill out all the tax forms, because that tax code changes every year, as does the payroll taxes, et cetera, for ADP and Paychecks. So those people you really want to keep up with as far as making sure that they keep you out of trouble with the IRS. Next slide.
Okay. Before we move on, I've got a couple questions here, John. This is one you're going to have to probably think about. Oh, what happened there? What was the worst situation you've had with a client, and how did you resolve it? That's a good one.
I remember the one that sticks out most in my mind is in the mortgage business. There are you usually try to do a lot of due diligence and research before you make the client spend a decent amount of money. A appraisal on a commercial deal is probably $5,000 or $6,000. And so I want to make sure that this loan is going to go through before I wind up causing them to write a check for that. And I was sure that this loan was going to go through. Well, he writes it was a $6,000 check in that case, writes the $6,000 check, and the loan doesn't get approved. And the reason being is that if you think of like various condos sitting inside of that are connected in a large building, there's a word called contiguous in which all of the walls are touching each other. Well, in his case, let's say that there are 8 condos, and this was commercial condos in that case, so it was in a warehouse kind of area. There were 8 condos in the place, and he owned 5 of them, and they weren't all back to back to back to back. There were, condos that were separating them, and that actually lowered the appraised value of that property to the point where the loan was not approved, and he wasn't able to get his $6,000 back. That was a phone call I remember to this day having to make. Now, how did I resolve that? I had to decide whether I was going to go ahead and write a $6,000 check to the guy and apologize to him, but I recognized that I was going to lose that customer anyway. So he got the apology from me, and he was the one that wound up losing the $6,000, mainly because he didn't inform me that all of his spaces were not contiguous. So there was some shared responsibility. I said, look, all I can do is apologize. I didn't realize, and you said, oh, I've got 5 spaces here in this condo, that they were not connected. And so, yeah, it was an ugly situation. It was bad communication, and it is one of those examples of what I'm saying. I knew it could be a problem. I didn't ask the question. I never failed to ask it again after that. So sometimes the only thing you can do is just, shake the customer's hand and say, I understand why you wouldn't want to use me again, and go on and learn your lesson that way.
Okay. We also have another one here. Would you expand a business if there is debt? I'm assuming that the business has some debt, and they're wanting to know whether an expansion would be a possibility.
Well, absolutely. I'll tell you one that an absolute winner story on something like that would be Amazon.com. I mean, Jeff Bezos took Amazon.com and put that company so tremendously in debt that they didn't even start showing a profit until a few years ago. Go back and do maybe a 10-year look at Amazon's stock price, and you'll see the stock price going up and up and up, and then you'll see it explode over the past several years, and that's because they finally paid all that debt off. And what he was doing is saying, I need to have this infrastructure in place to be able to make sure that I can deliver this. I don't know if you guys have ever ordered something and got it delivered to your house the next day without having to pay that extra shipping, but I've sure had it with them. I mean, their network of being able to deliver product is just impressive as can be. So he put that infrastructure in place by having debt, incurring debt along the way, and obviously he convinced the wherever he's getting the money from. He wasn't selling stock all the time. He was borrowing it from banks and in private lenders perhaps to be able to finance that. But he definitely had a winning business plan. But there I come to the crux that answers the question: would I try to expand a business, one that's already in debt? And the answer is yes, if it makes sense that I would do that. A good example of that would have to do with timing. Boy, here's another one, pet rocks. I mean, pet rocks were really only successful for a year. Not that you can't still get one, but the guy that sold pet rocks made I think it was close to $8 million in the 1 year that those things came out. And, what was the cost of sales on that? Maybe $1, and I think they sold them for 10. And he was able to clear $8 million in 1 year off of the pet rocks. Well, if he hadn't borrowed well beyond what he had available to him to make sure that he had as many pet rocks out there as he possibly could in all the retail stores, he wouldn't have been able to take care of the timing. That is not a business that you just grow. You need to make it happen, and happen quickly and overnight. And then if you're able to maintain it, great. But that's one where the timing is critical. And you're probably selling something better than a pet rock as far as its longevity, but I think you understand what I'm saying with the timing there.
Okay. All right. I have another one, but we're running close on time here, so we'll move on. We'll try to answer that one at the end. Okay.
All righty.
All right.
Yep, we're going on to working as your own boss. I still got the, okay, there we got it. And as you saw with the other slides before it, this is just breaking it down as far as one of the sections of the course curriculum, giving you the basics, the jack of all trades background when it comes down to marketing and yourself, the search engines, and making sure that you're putting your best foot forward with your clients. I got to say that the ideas shown on this page are the utmost importance in starting your own business. Here's an interesting one. When I wanted to know more about the things that are described here, like marketing myself online through search engines and social media, I was not really I was a computer user, but I wasn't all that familiar with how search engines and social media work. So I did some kind of sly research on the side. What I did was I contacted a firm that offers to do this for entrepreneurs. You may have heard of a company called Constant Contact. And they charge you a decent amount of money. I want to say somewhere around $1,500 a month to be able to take care of all of your online marketing that happens through search engine positioning and making sure that you're really putting your best foot forward in social media and using email properly. Well, I can tell you that when they sent me all of their materials and what their program was and what they were going to give me for $1,500 a month, I was enough of a jack of all trades to take a look at what their ideas were, and I just ran with it. I mean, that was all I needed to see was how the program was that they had. They didn't give me any details, but I had enough to figure it out from there. And had I not already understood computers, websites, at least understood the background of what search engines and social media marketing is all about, I wouldn't have been able to take advantage of that. So I had to at least understand or have the basic background and the things you're seeing talked about on this page to have the expertise I needed to be able to make the most out of the information that I gleaned off of what they had to offer in their marketing materials. You can do that yourself, and it's not it's not against the law to go ahead and get good ideas from other people. My gosh, there's more knockoff products on the market than there are original ideas. So I think you can see what I'm saying there.
Okay.
Next slide.
All right.
And this one slide is really just talking about all of the opportunities that we have to be able to market ourselves. All of those logos, or at least most of them, you would be familiar with. I'll tell you myself, I went out not even a year ago, started a YouTube channel on some stuff I do for a nonprofit organization. And, I would do a monthly lecture for people in the area for this nonprofit organization. And you get, I don't know, 20, 25 people to show up to the lectures. And then I started recording them and putting them on YouTube. I'm not kidding. Within 6 months, I had 100,000 views of what I had maybe had a few hundred people see live. So if you have the kind of product to be able to put it out there on, YouTube, if you know how to use Facebook and Instagram, WordPress, Flickr, all of those, to be able to promote yourself, you can, and especially if your product is one that can be marketed to people that are outside of your area. I understand if you're a wedding planner, you kind of have to, have some limitations of geography. You can't necessarily try to do wedding planning in Germany if you're here in the United States. So there are some limitations to this, but you wind up figuring out how to market yourself using these things, and it is the best bang for your buck when it comes to being able to not spend a lot of money and be able to get the word out there. Next slide.
Okay. I'm sorry, before I switch it here, we have a question here. Did you make money through the YouTube subscriber?
Because it was a nonprofit organization, I chose not to do what they call monetize it. Definitely could have. So you wind up having the ability to make money on it, but believe me, the people that make the kind of money that it takes to make a living off of it need to have hits or views in the millions, as opposed to 100,000 is impressive compared to the few hundred I had live. But to actually make a living at it, you do need to have your views in the millions. So yeah, I didn't try to make any money off of it being nonprofit, but if I had, I wouldn't have made much. Okay, so talking about word of mouth marketing and how do social media referrals impact returns? And returns basically meaning sales. When you take a look at the statistics, I'm not going to read them all to you there, but go ahead and review those and understand that those are very impressive numbers in terms of what people believe in terms of brand recommendations. They love it when they get online and say, everybody tell me what you think of this company. And when you go ahead and just Google that, you'll be able to see what all of the social media outlets tell you about a particular company, good and bad, so that you're able to go ahead and make a informed decision. So you figure out how to be able to use social media in terms of referral to be able to start guiding people in your direction to order, the kind of products or services that you offer, and that is when the thing really takes off for you. So if you keep these kind of statistics in mind, you'll understand why it's so important to be able to make sure that you have an online presence no matter what kind of a business you have today. I can tell you that I've run into people that are in shopping centers. I remember a guy in particular had a sporting goods place, and I walked in and there was almost nobody in the sporting goods store, and I started talking to him. I said, good heavens, you're paying for all this space right here. And he goes, yeah, it's because I'm stuck in a lease. He goes, I'm going to be in a warehouse as soon as the lease is over. He goes, I sell way more stuff online than I ever do in my retail location. So believe me, you figure out how to sell your product online, and then all of a sudden you don't have expensive real estate, with glass storefront windows that you're having to pay high rent for. You can just put it in a warehouse in a back street someplace, and who cares as long as you look like you're one of the biggest retail stores when your website or web page is online.
Mm-hmm.
I think we just have the one. We have the links we were going to talk about.
Yeah, I wasn't able to include them,
okay.
unfortunately. But we do have a question here. They're asking about the course and funding, and does it cover funding? And, whether what you would learn in that. And I don't know that you can answer that. You can.
Are we talking about funding as far as how do you borrow money from a bank or something like that?
Right, yeah.
Okay. Probably the best bet, especially with a brand new business, is what's called the SBA, or Small Business Administration. Banks are not going to be interested in you being a brand new entrepreneur trying to get something going. But what you can get from the SBA is that you take over an existing business. Of the 7 businesses that I had throughout my career, probably 3 of them were going concerns when I got involved in them. And what the SBA allows you to do is to take the track record of the business that you're acquiring, put as little as 25% of your own money into it, and they'll loan you the balance, the 75%, in order to be able to finance the purchase of a going concern. So if you think you're going to try to get money on your own, you can go to Shark Tank and and try to figure out if you can convince the panelists over there if they want to put their own money into it, or you can try to get it from mom and dad, or you can try to get it from private investors, or you can try it from the SBA. Believe me, you don't want to try to do this without having your own money to be able to act as a cushion to be able to make this thing work. That was why you saw me spend all that time trying to figure out if it was time to pull the trigger and become self-employed or not. So yes, remember the SBA, Small Business Administration. You can look it up under sba.gov, and you'll get all the other details of what various programs are available to you there.
Yeah, and I know that is talked about in the program as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We do have one more question. We're kind of out of time here, but let's answer this one. This is kind of an interesting one. Can I use a certificate in St. Lucia? So I assume they're in the Caribbean there.
There's certainly not a problem with being able to post the certificates. If you're talking about whether the credit that you have from that would be transferable over into a college, it's kind of a left and a right hand as far as the kind of credit that you get from a certificate is not gauged in the same way as it is for college credit. So you would have trouble necessarily if you wanted to transfer over into a degree program using this entrepreneur program or just start your own business program that Penn Foster offers. But that's a great question to be able to ask them ahead of time. In fact, I know that the registrar for Penn Foster is constantly working on what are called articulation agreements that work between what Penn Foster does in colleges, and it is possible to be able to get college credit for certificate programs if they work on that behind the scenes.
Right. Okay. I think that's all the questions we have. There is one more, and yes, you can email questions to me. There's a link on the invite, the link that you got to enter the webinar. You can feel free to send me questions, and we can probably answer them tomorrow. As you can see here, we have. What happened there? We have our program. Where did it go? We have the Start Your Business program, which is available on our website. You can also talk to one of our admissions specialists to enroll if you choose to enroll. For some reason, my end slide is not. There we go.
There you go.
I got a problem with my end slide here. Okay. So feel free to go on our website, take a look at the program. We also have a small business management program as well, which covers a little more. Either one of those are great programs for people thinking about starting their business. I really appreciate everyone attending tonight. And I want to let everybody know that this is recorded, and we will be posting it to the community next week. You'll also receive within 24 hours a email from me with a link to a little survey. It's only like 3 questions. It'll take you like 2 seconds to complete, to let us know what you thought of the webinar, and if you liked it, or whether there are other topics that you'd like us to discuss in a future webinar. So feel free to fill that out and send that in to us. And I want to thank John for taking time out of your busy day to attend, present the webinar to us. I know we had some technical difficulties at the beginning, and he was a little stressed, but he seems to have handled it well. I appreciate you taking the time to do that. And I'd like to thank everybody for attending. And, have a great night, and we look forward to maybe seeing you as a student down the road. Have a great evening, everyone.